What happens when a 4-year-old girl survives the most horrifying day of her childhood and spends the rest of her life carrying that memory? That is the haunting question at the heart of Without Blood, the upcoming 2026 war drama directed by Angelina Jolie and based on the acclaimed novel by Alessandro Baricco. And trust me, this is not the kind of revenge story where everything is about guns, explosions, and non-stop action. Instead, it is a slow-burning, deeply emotional story about loss, trauma, revenge, memory, and ultimately, forgiveness. The story begins in a remote farmhouse during the early 20th century. A group of armed men arrives at the house with one goal: revenge. Inside lives a doctor with his young son and 4-year-old daughter, Nina. When the attackers enter the house, the doctor realizes that he cannot protect his family for long. He desperately tries to save his children, but the situation quickly turns into a nightmare. Nina manages to hide beneath the floorboards. From her hiding place, she can hear the terrible sounds happening above her. Her father and brother are killed, leaving the little girl completely alone and terrified. But then, one of the attackers discovers her. He looks at Nina. For a moment, it seems certain that she will suffer the same fate as her family, but unexpectedly, the man decides to spare her life. He walks away and leaves the little girl alive. That single moment changes both of their lives forever. Years later, Nina has grown into an elegant woman. But despite the passage of time, she has never forgotten that night. She remembers her family, the men who came to the farmhouse, and most importantly, the man who found her beneath the floorboards. Eventually, Nina manages to find him. His name is Tito. Tito is now an older man working as a lottery seller. When Nina approaches him and begins what appears to be a casual conversation, Tito slowly realizes who she really is. He recognizes the girl from the farmhouse, and he immediately understands why she has come. The other men who participated in the attack are already dead under mysterious circumstances. Because of this, Tito believes Nina may have been hunting them down one by one. He suspects that he could be the final target. But instead of running away, Tito agrees to sit with Nina. And this is where the real story begins. Their conversation becomes a journey into the past. Nina wants answers about the night her family was murdered. Tito, meanwhile, is forced to confront memories that he has carried for decades. As they talk, the simple idea of revenge becomes much more complicated. Tito was one of the men who came to the farmhouse, but he was also the man who chose not to kill Nina. That decision has haunted him for the rest of his life. For Nina, surviving was not the same as escaping. She grew up carrying the trauma of losing her father and brother. The violence shaped her childhood, her relationships, and ultimately the person she became. The more Nina and Tito talk, the more we understand that both of them are prisoners of the same terrible event. One survived it, the other participated in it, but neither truly escaped it. The story gradually reveals that revenge doesn't simply end when the enemy dies. Sometimes it continues inside the mind of the survivor, becoming anger, grief, guilt, and obsession. Nina has spent years believing that confronting the people responsible might finally give her peace. But when she finally sits across from Tito, she discovers something far more complicated than the simple story of victim and murderer. Tito is not asking Nina to forget what happened, and Nina is not simply trying to punish him. Instead, their meeting becomes a painful confrontation between memory and forgiveness. The film asks whether a person can forgive something that changed their entire life. Can someone who committed terrible acts still feel regret? And can the person who suffered the most finally let go of the past? By the end, Without Blood becomes less about a traditional revenge plot and more about the enormous emotional cost of violence. Nina survived the massacre as a child, but decades later she must decide whether she will allow that one terrible night to control the rest of her life. Because sometimes revenge feels like justice, but sometimes forgiveness is the only way to finally escape the bloodshed of the past. What makes Without Blood 2026 stand out is that it doesn't treat revenge as a simple story of good versus evil. Instead, the movie digs into the emotional scars left behind by violence and asks whether a person can ever truly escape their past. The story is quiet and restrained, but underneath that silence is an intense psychological tension between Nina and Tito. Another major strength is the time jump in Nina's life. We first see her as a vulnerable 4-year-old child hiding from unimaginable violence, and then decades later, she returns as an adult woman who has never forgotten what happened. That transformation creates a powerful mystery. What has Nina been planning all these years, and what does she really want from the man who once spared her life? The relationship between Nina and Tito is also what gives the movie its emotional weight. Their meeting isn't presented as a typical confrontation between a victim and an enemy. Both characters carry complicated memories, guilt, fear, and regret. As their conversation unfolds, the audience gradually discovers that the past is far more complicated than it initially appeared. The movie also stands out because of its slow burn storytelling. Instead of depending on constant action or spectacular battle sequences, Without Blood builds tension through silence, expressions, memories, and carefully chosen dialogue. Sometimes a single look between two characters can feel more powerful than an entire action sequence. And perhaps the biggest reason to watch it is its exploration of revenge versus forgiveness. The film asks whether revenge can really heal someone, or whether holding on to hatred for decades only allows the original violence to continue living inside the victim. That gives the story a deeper emotional meaning beyond its war drama setting. With Salma Hayek and Demián Bichir at the center, Without Blood has the potential to deliver a deeply personal and haunting cinematic experience. It isn't simply asking, will Nina get revenge? It's asking something much more powerful. After everything that happened, is revenge really enough? The cast of Without Blood features Salma Hayek as Nina, the central character whose traumatic childhood shapes the entire story, while Angelica Pisilli portrays Nina at the age of 30 and Carole Fernandez plays Nina at the age of 14. Demián Bichir stars as Tito, the mysterious man connected to Nina's tragic past, with Ariel Paris Lima portraying young Tito and Patricio Jose playing Tito in his 30s. The film also features Juan Minujín as Salinas. Adding a personal connection to the project, Maddox Chivan Jolie Pitt and Pax Then Jolie Pitt are also credited in the cast. Angelina Jolie appears to approach the material with a restrained and intimate filmmaking style rather than turning it into a conventional war spectacle. The violence is important, but the emotional consequences of that violence are even more important. The movie is reportedly moving between different periods of Nina's life, allowing us to slowly understand how that one horrifying event shaped her entire identity. And that makes the relationship between Nina and Tito the real heart of the film. Salma Hayek brings an intriguing presence to Nina, a woman who appears calm and composed on the outside, but underneath that silence is decades of pain, questions, and unresolved emotions. Demián Bichir's Tito, meanwhile, carries the burden of a man who has lived with the memory of his own actions for years. Neither character is presented as completely innocent. Neither is completely monstrous. And that moral complexity is what makes their encounter so fascinating. The movie also features a younger version of Nina and younger versions of Tito, helping reveal how the characters were transformed by the events of their past. What makes Without Blood particularly compelling is its atmosphere. This isn't a loud, explosive revenge thriller. It is quiet. It is melancholy. It is mysterious. The dialogue is restrained, the emotions are often hidden beneath silence, and the tension comes from what the characters don't say as much as what they do say. Every conversation feels like it could reveal a secret, every pause feels meaningful, and every memory seems to bring Nina and Tito closer to a confrontation that has been waiting for decades. The story explores some incredibly powerful themes: family, war, childhood trauma, revenge, guilt, love, memory, and forgiveness. And that's why I think Without Blood could be one of those films that stays in your mind long after the credits roll. It's not necessarily about who wins, it's about whether anyone can truly win when violence has already destroyed so much. The film is reportedly scheduled for release on September 18, 2026, with a runtime of around 91 minutes. So, if you're expecting a massive war movie filled with constant action, this may not be that film. But if you enjoy deep emotional dramas, psychological revenge stories, slow burn mysteries, powerful performances, and movies that leave you thinking after they're over, then Without Blood is definitely one to keep an eye on. For me, the most fascinating part is the central meeting between Nina and Tito. A little girl once hid beneath a floor to survive. Decades later, that same girl returns as a woman. The man who once spared her is sitting right in front of her, and now both of them have to face the past. Sometimes the most dangerous battlefield isn't a war zone, it's the human heart. So, what do you think about Without Blood? Do you think Nina is looking for revenge or something much deeper? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you're excited for more upcoming movie updates, new releases, story explanations, reviews, and hidden gems around the world, don't forget to like this video, share it with other movie lovers, and subscribe to CheezeDrama. Stay tuned because there's always another incredible story waiting to be discovered.